In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Weekly Roundup. I am Fahim Abbas. As you know that, we'll be discussing important political, social and economic affairs which have happened domestically and also globally in the light of sermon of Ustad Muhtaram Sayyid Jawad Naqvi. As you know that, during the last week, some unfortunate events have happened, which includes railway incident in Kotki and also killing of 5 Muslims in Canada. We will be also discussing how Prime Minister of Pakistan has refused to meet CIA Director William Burns. After that, we will be discussing how West is moving from Islamophobia toward the killing of Muslims. So, as always, we are pleased to have been accompanied by Mr. Ali. How are you, Mr. Ali?
I am fine, thank you, Fahim. How are you going?
I am very fine. How was your last week?
It wasn't too bad, actually. Because of the hot weather, you can't do much.
Yes.
But yeah, it was all right, yeah.
Yes, temperature was around 50s.
Yeah, it was, the real feel was actually around like 55 degrees. And
yes.
Yeah, so it's really hard if you're wanting to go out or something, then just you must limit your activities really in this weather. It's better to stay at home or under the shade at your work or something, because there is risk of heat stroke and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't much. We didn't do much during this week.
Yes, last week was very unfortunate because on one side there was very much heat in Pakistan, and secondly, unfortunate event happened in Kotki in a railway incident where two trains just collided with each other, resulting in death of 65 passengers, and many were injured, and we are praying that they just get well soon.
Yeah,
but this is very unfortunate.
Yep, it was a terrible incident. Actually, it took place at Kotki, where Sir Syed Express actually when it collided with Millat Express, and as you mentioned, 65 people lost their lives and many got injured. These sort of incidents have been happening quite frequently in past. But unfortunately, no notice has been taken, no person has been accounted for it, and these things keep going on. And this is not.
The interesting fact is that since independence, railway is one of the most institute has been accused of corruption, and its ministers and also its secretaries and also its staff. They just keep on selling the railway engines and railway tracks, which were actually laid down by the British during 18th century, and they are very old. And these incidents happen day to day or even after months. And although if we see on the opposite side, contrary to the world, railway is considered one of the safest means of journey throughout the world, and people enjoy it, and they just consider it a family trip.
Yeah, and it's actually a big source of income for the other countries too, you know. And because of this corrupt staff in railway, as well as the politicians who are, as you mentioned, they are selling the railway tracks and engines as scrap, and you know that the railway network used to be much bigger than this whatever we have got at the moment at the time of independence, but it is because of the old system as well as the lack of transparency and corruption.
But, interesting fact is that when the British colonizers just laid down this track, it extended till Balochistan, and it also went toward Afghanistan, but now it is very limited. In Balochistan it just goes to Quetta and then it just finishes, and mostly the railway track is very scary, and all these incidents happen. But the sad news is that the information minister has declared the government who was in power about 15 years ago, they have declared them responsible.
That's
most
ridiculous,
probably the Musharraf regime.
Yeah, that's ridiculous actually, because one sad thing is that actually we lose lives every now and then. But the second sad thing is that no lessons are learned from these sort of incidents. If someone is accounted for it, if whoever is responsible for these sort of incidents, even if it's road accidents, if it's airline accidents or crashes or something, then if you bring them to justice, then obviously like there will be some sort of accountability. And on the other hand, you will see you'll learn a lot of lessons that these mistakes happened which caused this mishap, and then you try to avoid it, and then you put them in the system and the protocols, and you learn lessons from it. But unfortunately, nothing has been done so far.
Yes, if we want to counter these types of incidents in future, few steps need to be taken. One is the proper maintenance of this old railway track, and second is that the replacement of corrupt staff which are there, and third, the most important thing is that inquiry must be held, and the persons who are responsible for incident, they must be held accountable before law, because if an example is set here, then everyone else who will come in his place, he will be vigilant.
Actually, the media and
important thing is that the politicians should not handle this means of transportation. Rather, technocrats must be handling this.
Yeah, and the actual thing is that actually the our media outlets as well as judiciary, they should keep this issue alive, because normally what we see that after this sort of incident in which we lose big amount of lives, the news are on the media and different programs and stuff for a week or so, but then nation forgets and we wait for the next incident to happen. And same news, like similar sort of news fame that actually in Khuzdar on Friday, this last Friday, there was a bus accident. In a passenger bus, it was carrying a lot of passengers, and we lost 18 lives in this. But as we saw in the train and flight, no one will be considered accountable for it, and these things will continue.
Railway, as far as railway is concerned, it is considered one of the safest means of transport in the world. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, everyone is now scared, because after that incident, there was another train which actually derailed, but fortunately no lives and they were harmed. So moving on, this needs to be keep in balance. And good news is that Prime Minister of Pakistan has ordered the use of Urdu in his cabinet meetings, and it is good move as Prime Minister of Pakistan since he came into his office. He has been using national dress, shalwar kameez.
That's fantastic. Very good. And actually,
this is good on his behalf.
And he's not the only leader who is using his national dress. We see in history, like Mahatma Gandhi, he used to put the lungi on when he went to United Nations, and like abroad, whenever he was going, he was putting on his own dress. Prime Minister Modi, Indian Prime Minister, we saw him. There is a famous photo of him laughing with Donald Trump, in which actually the journalists were asking him question in English, and he was responding in Hindi.
In Hindi, and Trump just cracked the joke there that Modi knows English, but he's just speaking Hindi to irritate the journalists.
That's where they laughed.
But another aspect of this move is that, as according to the Constitution of Pakistan, government is responsible for implementing Urdu in our institute, and these includes our educational sector, our bureaucratic sector, and our justice system. Because interesting fact is that in our judiciaries and in our session courts and in our high courts and supreme courts, judges and lawyers speak English, and the person, a common man in Pakistan cannot understand English, and whenever the decisions are made, it is also in English, so he is unable to understand what the judge has written. So this must be implemented in judiciary system and also in our education system, because we are an independent nation for more than 70 years, and still we are unable to decide our medium of education which we are going to use, because on one side we have focused on English and our nation is unable to learn English.
Well, our ex-Chief Justice Nasirul Mulk, he had ordered in one of his judgment that government is responsible. He was only his tenure was really very small. He ordered in one of his judgments that government should implement Urdu as the official language. It is written in constitution. It is a constitutional requirement.
That decision was also made in English.
That
was very unfortunate.
And Yeah, and actually, our government, they are really strong, and we know that Prime Minister has taken several bold steps. When he came to the government, he ordered to actually break the governor house, and
Demolish
he
Governor
ordered
House.
demolish the governor house, and also he was wanting to convert the Prime Minister house into a university. That didn't happen, and because he was told by the different departments that it's not
One
possible.
interesting
Yeah.
fact is that recently Tajikistan head of state visited Pakistan,
Yep.
and he was accompanied by a interpreter, and
Yep.
he was speaking in Tajiki Farsi,
Yep.
which is very sweet. And even although he knows English, but he was speaking his own language, and
Yep.
that was very good on his behalf.
Yeah,
And now Prime Minister of Pakistan has also ordered
Yeah.
use Urdu.
Yeah, Imam Ali Rahmanov is his name. He's got a sweet
Yes.
name too, and it's a sweet language, Tajik Farsi. And especially after this, I think PM has got this idea that he's changed his mind regarding Urdu. But only changing the Prime Minister office's language to Urdu is not enough. Curriculum should be changed, technology should be converted in Urdu, and we know that there are a lot of advantages of having technology in your own language. If you see developed countries like China or even Iran or something like, they've got
China,
technology in
Russia,
Urdu,
Turkey,
their own
wherever
language,
their
yeah.
leaders
Yeah.
goes. For example, Chinese head of state, they speak
Yep.
Chinese.
Yep.
Turkish Prime Minister
Yep.
speak Turkish.
Yep.
Persian Prime Minister speak Persian.
Yeah,
So why
you-
not Urdu?
Yeah, exactly. Why they are doing two things. It actually shows your national dignity as well as your representing
culture.
national culture. Also, you are actually presenting in front of the world. And
Yes, remember those days when Mahatma Gandhi used to wear lungi
Yeah, that's what I said
on
before.
international
Yeah.
scenario.
Exactly right. And I think if Prime Minister, as I mentioned, that he is a celebrity and he would love people to like him for many reasons, and I think because of the strong government, he can do this.
Yes,
And he
as we
should-
know that the government is very strong and is backed by the establishment, also
Yep.
by bureaucracy. So
That's
Prime
true.
Minister of Pakistan can implement this. So moving on toward global affairs.
And sorry, I had one news regarding the State Bank governor.
Yes, that is the interesting news of the week.
Yeah, exactly right. In which he says that as our Prime Minister normally says a lot of ceremonies, he says that the nation shouldn't panic, good time is coming and stuff. It's a similar sort of thing what the State Bank governor said. He said that actually the increase in the prices,
Inflation.
it only went up to the level which was expected. Although people are screaming that it's out of control and they are having difficulty to make both ends meet, but that's what our governor of State Bank has said. And
yes, this is very unfortunate, but as we know that the common people of Pakistan are suffering, and we pray that one day these hardships will be over.
Inshallah.
Now moving on toward the global affairs. As we know that in West there was a theory known as Islamophobia, and during that phase the West used to make different organizations like ISIS, Taliban and Mujahideen, and they presented this phase of Islam toward the West people, and they just make Western people scared of Islam, and this theory was known as Islamophobia, and it was very much dominant during Bush era. But now West has moved from Islamophobia toward the killing and genocides of Muslim, and there are many episodes of this, and we see these happenings in Western world day to day. And now recently, unfortunate event has happened in Canada where a truck driver has just ran over 5 family members, and they were just husband and wife and their children, and just because they were Muslims. And this is the new wave of killing of Muslims, and the West has moved from Islamophobia toward the genocide and killings of Muslims.
Yeah, actually these things started, as you mentioned, after 9/11, at the time of President Bush, when the clash of civilization theory was brought in by American think tanks. And Western media has played a terrible role in this. They are actually causing, as you mentioned, that they are showing the videos of these terrorist organizations, and whenever there is a small sort of incident in any part of the world, they call it as an Islamist attack, and they are linking Islam to terrorism. And
yes, Canada is playing very
yeah,
dual standards roles here because they don't condemn the atrocities and
that's true.
which were carried out by Israel during the
Yeah,
recent 12 days war in Gaza.
as well as in Kashmir too. Yeah,
Yes.
in they don't talk about India, whatever they are doing in India or Kashmir, and their so-called human rights slogan is only used for their pushing their geopolitical agenda. It's not only with Canada; it's all with all the Western countries who are just shouting about the human rights, and whenever there is even a small incident in Pakistan or something, they say a lot of things.
Yes,
But they,
talking about these killings, recently events have happened, attack on mosques in New Zealand, similarly killing of Muslims
50
in
people
UK,
lives they lost their
and
lives.
these were very unfortunate incidents.
And
And talking about our region, this Asia,
in UK as well, there were several incidents.
yes,
Yes,
and talking about South Asia, where Hinduism and Buddhism are they are most peaceful religions in the world,
yeah,
and but unfortunately Modi is just doing his
yeah. Actually,
undermining Muslims,
yeah,
and similarly unfortunate incidents have happened in Burma, where
in Burma
Muslims
too. Yeah.
were forced to evict
Yeah,
from their own lands.
Hinduism is considered to be one of the
Most
most peaceful religions because in their teachings, you're not even allowed to slaughter the animals, and to no bloodshed is allowed. No, there is no teaching of jihad or like fighting with other people or something like that. And same as you mentioned in Buddhism, in this Buddhism, it's so peaceful. The teachings are so peaceful that even if you've got a lease in your head, just take it out and keep it at a safe place. You cannot kill it. So, but we see in practically what they are doing. They have massacred people in Burma
and similarly in Kashmir, because since the Modi regime came into power, and after the revocation of Article
that's true
375, I think, and Kashmiris are in siege for more than about 500 days,
and Christians
still
are
counting.
Yep, Christians are same too. Like in the Christian religion, the Bible teaches them that if you are slapped on one side of the face, just present the other side and don't respond to it. But what we see from the like armies of NATO, most of the NATO countries are Christians, but they have killed scores of people in Afghanistan, in Yemen now, and before that in Iraq. And
yes, one interesting fact is that French president has received a letter from his secret army, and this secret army is basically on the African island, and they have gathered fugitives and criminals from around the world, and those who are physically very fit, and they have provided them special training, and even they are not, in comparison with Blackwater, they are much superior than Blackwater, because Blackwater people are very terrified from Blackwater, but this secret army of France has written a letter to the French president, and they are saying that if we don't kill Muslims, then they will kill us. So we must start primitive attacks.
That's right. And these terrorists, actually terrorists from all around the world, as you said, even from our country, the terrorist wings of MQM, the terrorist organization in Karachi, their terrorists have gone to South Africa, and from there, whoever were fit and like in a good shape, they were recruited over there, and there is no. There is no mercy in the hearts of these beasts, and they are
this
terrible
is the
people.
alarm for Muslims who are residing in West, because now they are not going to come back to their homelands, and they must devise a system there. One system they can do is to have their own colonies, have their own education system, have their own business, and have their own security.
Yeah, because the media and the Western governments both are responsible to create this sort of hostile environment for people, Muslims living in West, and whenever they see any lady wearing scarf or hijab going in the market, then they get the shape of the terrorist organizations or something. And this needs to be countered. Our Prime Minister, he has said several times that he wants to counter Islamophobia, but he needs to understand that what level the world has reached already.
From
as you
Islamophobia
to it has gone to the genocide now. So if you've got a better understanding, then you can obviously go and tackle and fight this Islamophobia or genocide.
One sad news about this dual standard of Western civilization is that more than 200 bodies of school-going children have been found recently in a school, of Red Indian, and which was actually being run by
Yeah.
white.
Yeah,
And Red Indians were the actual inhabitants of this land.
That's true. Yep. And Red Indians,
This
as
is
you
very
know, the
brutal.
history. Yeah, this is terrible. Actually, as Red Indians, as you know, the history of them, that actually Columbus, when he traveled from England to search for, to discover any land where they can live and where they can loot and stuff, he reached the shores of United States in 1492, and he saw these red people. Initially they thought that it's India, but their color was red, and they named it as Red Indians. Although they are not Indians, they are called Red Indians, and they
Yes.
were like killed in several thousand people were killed over there
During
not
that
only,
time.
and not only over there, in Australia, in New Zealand, everywhere. The original people were these Aboriginal people, or the indigenous people, were not the white people. But
Yes, as we know that there are 4 races in the world. White people mostly reside in Europe,
that's true.
and we are the brown people, and
Yep.
then Africans who are black, and the Americans, they are
Yep.
red,
Yep.
and they are actually inhabitants of this land.
That's true. Yep.
And their children are being massacred in
Yep.
Canada.
That's
and
true.
In 1960s, 5,000 children were also killed
Oh my God.
who were Red Indians,
Hmm.
and they were in this school,
Yep.
which
And-
was actually being run by these white people.
Yep. And there is another news regarding like 700 students in a university in United States. They actually they were sexually abused, and the university has fixed a certain amount of money to give to these women who had suffered this injury.
Yes.
And this shows the level of what level has the society reached in West. And
Yes, this is very unfortunate
That's
event,
true.
and also a lesson for those who are in love with the Western
That's true.
civilization, and they
Yep.
just idolize it.
Yep.
Although our great philosopher and poet Allama Iqbal has warned us
Yep.
to stay away from Western civilization, and we must stay away from this civilization, because this unfortunate incident is the one which has been reported, and those unreported incidents are in much large number. So these are some unfortunate events, and the Western civilization has moved from Islamophobia toward the genocide of Muslims. So now we are going to take a short break, and after the break we will be discussing about Afghan crisis and how the Prime Minister, there are speculations that Prime Minister of Pakistan has refused to meet CIA Director William Burns. So we'll be discussing all these. Stay in touch with us. As you know that in this weekly roundup we were discussing domestic affairs, and now we'll be discussing some global affairs, and this domestic affair is affiliated with the global affair. There are certain speculations that Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has refused to meet CIA Director William Burns, and one news agency in Pakistan, Dawn, has reported this. And Prime Minister of Pakistan has said that CIA Director must follow some diplomatic terms. So this is very good news, Mr. Ali.
Yeah,
that
actually,
first time CIA Director has been refused.
That's
Because
actually,
in the past,
if it's true, people are not really actually,
yes,
they're not believing on the news. And because in past we have seen that our prime ministers and our state, like head of states have met, they were really quite happy to meet even the CIA director and even the small people on the small posts from USA. If someone comes from USA, they're happy to do that. But if it is true, then it would be a wonderful news. That's true.
But other part of this news that opposition is accusing government that government has just given land and air access to Americans, which Americans were demanding, and this is just now media war.
Yeah, the media war. Actually, the reason for that CIA director arrival in Pakistan would definitely be U.S. departure from Afghanistan, and they have been pushing Pakistan to give them the aerial routes and air bases here. Although, it's although if they want to give the aerial support to the Afghan government through drones and stuff, they can. Why can't they use their why can't they take air bases from other countries? Or
yes, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, they are neighboring to Afghanistan, and they can use their land
but
and
they
air
are pushing
access.
Pakistan because of an agenda. They want to convert the Taliban
Yes,
to
Afghan Taliban against Pakistan.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Which are good friend of Pakistan.
That's true. 90%. It's one of the defense analysts. He said that around 90% population of Pakistan, they are in favor of Taliban. And Taliban has threatened Pakistan too against that. That if you're going to give air bases to United States, then you'll be considered our enemies. And this
yes, but the interesting fact is that if Prime Minister of Pakistan has refused this CA directive, then it is very big news on the world scenario, because never ever have this happened before. Because if we see during the era of dictatorship, during Zia regime and during Musharraf regime, these CA directives were free. And they were even considered more powerful than the head of states of America, like the president of America.
That's true.
And whenever they want to visit Pakistan, they would just come and enjoy, and whatever they want, they were just offered in plate. But this is very brave act if Prime Minister of Pakistan has done this, and we are hoping that this news is just true, because it will restore dignity of Pakistan.
Because we saw that incident, Abbottabad incident, in which they came and did operation in Abbottabad near our big military base, and we couldn't do much about it, and it was a shame for us on the international scale.
In a report which which was published about the Abbottabad incident, no one was declared responsible, and in that report it was just stated that Pakistani authorities were unaware of that military operation. And if Pakistani government and Pakistani establishment has taken this step, then they will be second on the list to refuse to America, because Iran was doing this, and now Pakistan is also on the list, because Pakistan is much stronger as compared to Iran, because we are a nuclear state and we can do this.
We need to do that, and we need to get independence from this Western monarchy.
We hope that this news is true. And another important global affair is that Afghanistan crisis. And as you know that Americans are just pulling their troops, and they will be evacuating Afghanistan till August. But there are speculations that they might leave before August, because they are in a hurry. But if we go into the history of Afghanistan crisis, since Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and from 1979 till 2021, we can divide this into two phases. During the first phase, 1980s to 2000, when the America came into Afghanistan, it came here just to counter Soviet Union, because at that time Soviet Union was a military state, and they were just expanding, and they were spreading communism towards Eastern Europe, and
they were
now
militarily quite stronger. They were even stronger than United States, although the economy of United States was stronger than Soviet Union, but they were able to break Soviet Union into pieces without even coming to this region, without even spending a penny. They used Arabic money, they used jihadis from Pakistan, and they destroyed Soviet Union. And
interesting fact was that Soviet Union was just coming into the region because they want to gain access to warm water. And if Soviet Union was able to gain access to these warm water, then it would have been much tough for Americans to counter Soviet Union. They just counter Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and the American policy was very interesting. They didn't use their money, they didn't use their land, and they didn't even use their military. And their strategy was very successful, because Mujahideen were formed, and they used American weapons, which Arabs just gave to these Mujahideen, because the money was paid by Saudi Arabia and other countries.
They enjoyed it a lot. You know, the people, these Mujahideen in Pakistan and Afghanistan, we see in those days there was another war going on in the region between Iraq and Iran, where Americans and the world was surprised when they saw Stinger missile being fired from Iran on Iraq. And that was actually
these Mujahideen were selling those missiles to Iranian.
And they were selling all this defense equipment which was being given to them by United States to fight against the Soviet Union. Some of them were selling it to Iran.
At that time, United States was very successful, and its strategy was, that very good, and the purpose of her coming to Afghanistan was fulfilled. But But United States at that time made a terrible mistake, and they just leave Mujahideen on their own after Soviets just departed, and Americans flew back. And at that time, Mujahideens were on their own. And domestic conflict in Afghanistan started. Those Mujahideens who forced the Soviet troops to just move out from Afghanistan, they started fighting between themselves. And a domestic war started in Afghanistan, and it was a crisis.
Yeah, people are expecting a huge destruction coming in Afghanistan, and they are saying that actually Afghanistan is getting ready for the next stage. And this, as you said, that we can break the American invasion or American presence in the area or the Afghan issue into two parts. The first one is 1979 to 2001, and the second one is 2001 to 2021.
Yes,
yeah.
and
So
after
now,
when the domestic war in Afghanistan started, American launched another strategy.
Yeah.
They formed Taliban,
Yeah.
and then Taliban just countered Mujahideen and they rose to power in Afghanistan in 1996.
and they
And after
entered
that,
here and just destroyed them,
yes.
making the excuse of Osama bin Laden after 9/11
And
drama.
after that, 9/11 drama was
Yeah.
launched,
That's
and
true.
then they just came into Afghanistan. Second time Americans came into Afghanistan. So what were the reasons why Americans came into Afghanistan second time?
Actually, they wanted to create this sort of that frighten the whole world, and especially the countries in the region, especially Iran and China, and show their power. And that was the strategy in which we see them like firing big sort of bombs in
Tora Bora.
in Tora Bora, and
On the hills.
we saw the results of it. Our President Musharraf, he gave all the air bases everything after seeing the destruction in Tora Bora, because world leaders were frightened from America.
Yes, at that time Americans want to establish their military supremacy on the world, and they just want to frighten the whole region. And they were also present in the region because of the oil resources which are present in the Gulf, and they just want to keep and check and balance on those oil resources.
Yeah, but now they've decided to pack up because they have lost. Yeah, because they have lost around 2,400 lives of U.S. soldiers, and they have like spent trillions of dollars here, and the American troops and the people in America are demanding them to just withdraw from it, but they are not actually withdrawing. They will still be keeping the presence over there through their proxies, and the proxy war will be.
And the interesting fact is that during the agreement which was signed between Taliban and Afghan and Americans, Americans are just strengthening Taliban, and they are just giving them a view that now the Taliban are the major stakeholders in Afghanistan, because Americans want to play the next game with the help of Talibans, and Talibans had to be very strong, because when Americans came into Afghanistan after 9/11, they restored democracy, and now democracy will be finished and there will be Taliban regime.
But actually Taliban, as you mentioned, they are getting really mature now. They are having negotiations with Iran, politically mature. They have got relations with Turkey. First peace talks with USA were started actually in Qatar, and now they are politically really mature. They have transformed into a political power now. And as compared to the Taliban in Pakistan, they are just like beasts. They don't have any political agenda or anything. And the Afghan Shias, they have got concerns regarding America's departure from Afghanistan, because they think that Taliban are going to cause a lot of destruction, especially to Shias, because as we know that Shias have been always a soft target, even it's in Pakistan or if it's Afghanistan. They are used to give some sort of practice to terrorists that go and practice your armory and stuff. And but Zabiullah Mujahid, the representative of Afghan Taliban, he has in one of his speeches he assured the Shias of Afghanistan that Shias are our brothers, and we have got nothing to do with them, and we are going to take with them in confidence whatever moves we are going to take.
But one interesting fact is that, as we know that now it is not the rivalry between United States and Soviet Union. On the global scenario, it is the rivalry between United States and China.
That's true.
And China is not military power, although it is trying to develop its shapes and military strong, but it is not as strong as United States. But China is economically very strong. And now Americans just want to counter China economically and its economic project, especially CPEC and Belt Road Initiative. And Taliban can pose a threat to CPEC. Although interesting fact is that Americans tried to counter it with the help of Modi, but failed in Ladakh.
Yeah, exactly right. They
were
beaten really badly with like punches and stuff. No armory was used, but Indians were defeated really badly.
And then after that, Modi
actually
signed an agreement, and they said that this is your land. We have nothing to do with it.
They've been threatened by China because China claims that part, which is an important part of India, that it's their own territory.
Ladakh.
Yep, it's their own territory, and they couldn't do that. And then they tried the weapon of Mohammed bin Salman. Mohammed bin Salman came and visited Gwadar and stuff, and he signed some agreements that he is going to spend billions of dollars and he is going to replace China. But that didn't work. Now they are trying to use these terrorists or Taliban and their proxies to disturb China and Iran and Pakistan, of course. And this sort of strategy, we'll see if it works or not. Yeah.
Yes, Americans also have to keep an eye on the revolution, and they just want to curb this revolution to Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yep.
This is also part of their strategy.
Yep.
And another fact is that during all this scenario,
Yep.
different organizations in Pakistan are also gathering, and they are strengthening themselves, and it seems like that they are just preparing for a new war, and even in organizations in Afghanistan and Taliban and Al-Qaeda, they are just strengthening.
It's scary
and
for
they are
Pakistan.
Preparing for a huge war.
Yeah, it's scary for Pakistan. Mohammed, on this Friday, different
conference
ulama
was
of
also
different
held.
Deobandis and they have different sect ulamas, they went to Makkah and met Mohammed bin Salman, and they were discussing that US departure, and they are preparing the strategy and stuff. So it's they are not good news for Pakistan, but hopefully our establishment and our government, as we know that they are really aware, and they would devise a strategy to tackle all this situation. And different political factions and religious factions, they should put their heads together and devise such sort of plan that there is no damage caused to Pakistan. Our Prime Minister has spoken several times that Pakistan won't be used in, even when he was in USA, he said that Pakistan is not going to fight the wars of other countries.
Yes, I want to share an interesting news with you.
Yep.
That when Americans first attacked Afghanistan, and during 9/11, that was second time when Americans attacked Afghanistan, and there was a TV show in Iran, and he was talking to a professor in America, and he was just asking what are the views of people of America about Afghanistan, and he said that Americans, as it is the morning here in America, and Americans have just wakened up, and the first thing they will be doing, they will be searching Afghanistan. Where is Afghanistan? And at that time, the embassy of America in Afghanistan was very small, but now if we talk about the embassy of America in Afghanistan, it has its own military base, it has its own airport, and very large embassy, and lakhs of army can stay there. So this shows the importance of Afghanistan for America, and America is not demolishing that embassy. That embassy is present there. They're just pulling their own troops. So it means that America is keeping a lot of interest here in this region.
That's right.
And the interesting fact is that Americans are just pulling their troops because because a new war is going to be start, and Afghanistan is on the brink of new war. And till now, Americans were like security officer of Afghanistan.
That's right.
And they were accountable if anything wrong would have happened. But now, as we know that it is part of their plan to start a new war. So Americans are pulling their troops. They would not be responsible for that war.
Lack of peace won't, because of the lack of peace in Afghanistan, USA won't be blamed, because if when United States was present here, then the like this war situation and instability in Afghanistan, people were blaming United States. But now they are going to keep their presence nearby, and are going to do this through their proxies, and they won't be blamed either. And that's the new strategy. And Afghan Taliban, they are not happy with the new government in United States, because Trump had they signed the agreement that America would be pulling out the troops by May. But this Joe Biden, when he came, he postponed it to 9/11. He has promised that he will be doing it before 9/11. So that's the next piece of round of talks was planned for April, which didn't happen because of because of Taliban blaming USA for
Yes,
breaking this
and
promise.
as we know that Taliban would be a major stakeholders in Afghanistan
Yep.
in the coming years, and these things which we are discussing, they are not going to be happen in about 1 or 2 months. Rather, they will be happening into 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
And Taliban also strengthening their relations with Iran. This convoy has visited Iran,
Yep.
and a delegation was a delegation of Afghanistan visited Iran, and they were given protocols, and they are also even holding different affairs with Turkey and other countries.
People used to think that Pakistan is controlling these Afghan Talibans, and you would have seen the recent statement from our foreign minister. He was quite angry on
Yes.
Afghan government's stance that whatever happens in Afghanistan after US leaves, Pakistan would be responsible. Pakistan is like scared about this thing.
Yes, these Afghan Taliban were good friend of Pakistan, and they used to consider Pakistan as their senior and their master. But now they are refusing because they have become politically mature, and they are strengthening diplomatic ties with other countries. And on the other side, it is frightening for Pakistan, because if Pakistan has given land and air access to United States, then Taliban has also frightened Pakistan that they will be using their force against Pakistan.
There are two opinions regarding that either to keep Taliban friends or to keep US as a friend. Because if you annoy one person and keep friendship with the other one, you are in trouble.
Yes, and it is also the part of strategy of United States to demolish the relation between Pakistan and Afghani Taliban, and it would be further resulting in war in Pakistan and in Afghanistan.
Cause destruction here, That's true.
So our authorities have to be very vigilant, and as we know that Americans are just pulling out their troops, but they are not leaving. They are here, their embassy is there, and they are present in the region for their own interest. And as we know that this is the era of interest, and the politics which are being done in this region is not based on the ideology, rather it is based on the interest. So every country just want to keep an eye on their interest, and we as Pakistanis must also keep an eye on our interest, and inshallah our authorities are very vigilant about this. And as we know that peaceful Afghanistan is in favor of Pakistan and also region, so we are hoping and praying for the peace of Afghanistan and for the Muslim world. So this is it from this week, and we'll be keeping in touch with you in next week. Till then, it's goodbye.